The Mario franchise consists of approximately a gazillion games. And when you look through the list, it is actually remarkable how many of the official Nintendo released games are pretty well known and remembered. Even the most spun-off spin-offs have their fans and get their flowers. But there are some games that fall under the Mario umbrella that haven't exactly stuck in the mind. And I'm not just talking about games that have only ever been released in Japan or are so old the vast majority of us weren't even born. No, even a system as relatively recent as the 3DS has Mario games that I would wager very few of you have given a thought to in the last, say, 5 years. Puzzle & Dragons Super Mario Bros. Edition is a puzzle game that is essentially a Mario reskin of the Puzzle & Dragons series, which was a tremendous success in Japan on mobile devices in 2012. A year later, in 2013, a new version of Puzzle & Dragons, Puzzle & Dragons Z, was released in Japan on 3DS, and then in early 2015, Japan received Puzzle & Dragons Super Mario Bros. Edition. In the West, these games were packaged together with the catchy title Puzzle & Dragons Z plus Puzzle & Dragons Super Mario Bros. Edition. It may be easy to call this a mere crossover or not a proper Mario game, but that isn't the truth at all. It may borrow all its mechanics and gameplay elements from Puzzle & Dragons, but everything about the story and the enemies and the items is all straight from the Mushroom Kingdom. Only Tamadra, the mascot of the franchise, makes an appearance in this game. There aren't even any dragons here. In that way, it's not really different from what Square Enix did when they made Mario Basketball and included some Final Fantasy phases. The story of the game is obviously simple. Random orbs suddenly appear at Princess Peach's castle, at which point Bowser shows his face and takes both the princess and the orbs, forcing Mario to give chase. This time, Mario relies on the power of these orbs to stop Bowser, which come into play via the puzzle gameplay, which is of a tile matching variety like many mobile games in this genre. What sets Puzzle & Dragons, and thus the Mario version as well, apart from others is that it combines its tile-matching style with elements of monster collecting games, as often seen in RPGs like Pokémon or Dragon Quest Monsters. You have to build a team of characters that you can rely on for attacks and the like, and in the Mario version these monsters to be caught are actually the familiar enemies. As such, if you view these characters in a team as playable, which they kinda are to be honest, then this game has one of the largest playable rosters in Mario history, with 178 characters, and marks the first time many deep-cut enemies were playable. The roster is not actually that big though. Using items you can upgrade characters so they more or less evolve into a stronger form. For example, giving a Buzzy Beetle a Boo Mushroom makes it a Bony Beetle. For a puzzle game with mobile roots, the Mario version of Puzzle & Dragons doesn't really feel like many of its contemporaries, for better and for worse. There are no microtransactions or energy mechanics or anything like that, so that's definitely positive, but the game also very much feels like it's trying to be a gateway to the actual Puzzle & Dragons games rather than be the best version it can be. Its mechanics are purposefully kept simple, and for a game of this style there are not that many levels. 100 courses are in the Mario version of the game, which is about half of Puzzle & Dragons Z, which is already shorter than the mobile versions. So in terms of replayability, it's definitely not as infinite as puzzle games usually are, especially on mobile. This may feel a bit weird to say in a video about forgotten Mario games, but for what it was, this game was actually really successful. It's estimated to have sold around 1.5 million copies, which is not super high for a Mario game, but it's very respectable for such a niche game, and it easily puts it high above other Mario puzzle games. Only the first few Dr. Mario titles significantly outsold it. I would estimate most of these sales come from Japan, where Puzzle & Dragons was really hot around this time, which would explain why you never hear anyone talk about this. It just didn't really find a footing in the West. That is speculation on my part though, sales numbers for specific regions aren't known. A game in a similar style to Puzzle & Dragons Super Mario Bros. Edition that has ended up equally forgotten is Dance Dance Revolution Mario Mix, a GameCube title that is essentially a Mario reskin of the arcade sensation that is and was Dance Dance Revolution. It came bundled with a dance mat for the full experience and is of course a rhythm game, where you need to step on the right panels at the right time to get a high score. Just like the 3DS puzzle game, this title is a weird amalgamation of all kinds of things from the Mario franchise, and as such, also has some weird history about it. For example, it's one of the only Mario games where the main villain isn't Bowser, but Waluigi. It's his action of stealing the music keys and accidentally spreading them across the Mushroom Kingdom that sets off the story, which does eventually culminate in a final battle against Bowser, like always, but Waluigi is more the main antagonistic threat of the game, as far as you can speak of there being one. This game is also the only title in the Mario series to feature Waluigi, but not Peach, and it is one of the few times several Mario spin-offs cross over together, as the game features music from not just the main Super Mario games, but also the Mario Kart, Paper Mario and Mario Party series. It also has a whole bunch of royalty-free music, like Mozart's pieces and all that. Unique to this game compared to other DDR titles is the Mush mode, named after a mushroom, as in Mario themed. It replaces certain dance instructions with Mario enemies or items which must be either stepped on or avoided. It's hardly a completely revolutionary idea, of course, but hey, it's something. Simply this being a DDR game for a home console was already more than novel enough. The Mario skin only made it more appealing. I mean, who doesn't want to see Mario and Luigi pull off these ridiculous looking moves with their Mario Party models? There is something about Mario reskin games that really fit the themes in this video, because there's another group that definitely falls in this camp. The 4 Game & Watch Gallery games are, I would argue, some of the most forgotten Mario games of all time. And it's easy to see why. They are among the only Mario games without Mario in the title, which is not great for your recognizability, and they are reskins of some of the most simple games Nintendo has ever made, as the title suggests, the Game & Watch games. The original Game & Watch is mostly remembered nowadays from an historic perspective. I doubt there's even one person in the world who still regularly plays these games, and I suspect that was already the case at the end of the 90s, when these gallery titles were released. Then again, the fact they made 4 of them suggests they must have sold at least some copies, but one thing is for certain, the people that played them never talk about them whatsoever. There's really not a whole lot to say about them, there's no cool trivia or weird stuff happening here, it's mostly just classic Game & Watch games given a, for the time, modern reskin featuring everyone's favorite Mario characters. The last game in the series, Game & Watch Gallery 4, actually never released in Japan, but also features reskins of some of the very first actual Mario games, like Donkey Kong, Mario Bros and Donkey Kong Jr., which is kinda cool, as while this would happen more often later, especially with Mario Bros, at the time it was brand new. But yeah, this entire series is a very fitting candidate for the topic of this video. But it isn't just reskins that end up forgotten. What about Mario Pinball Land, also for the GBA? This game was developed by Fuse Games, now known as Silverball Studios, which is a British studio founded by 2 successful pinball developers, who brought their expertise to the GBA with Mario Pinball Land and later worked with Nintendo again on the DS to make Metroid Prime Pinball. While I have understood that that game is actually very highly rated among those who can make a judgment on the quality of pinball games, I can't imagine Mario Pinball Land is in the same caliber. I always found this game incredibly frustrating to play, especially compared to Pokemon Pinball Ruby and Sapphire, which was also on GBA, and so much better, it wasn't even funny. Pinball Land does stand out graphically though, as a sort of 3D game, which was very rare on the GBA. I mean, pure looks wise, it honestly looks more like a DS game, that's very impressive. The game stars Mario in ball form as he tries to save Peach in ball form, who has been shot straight to Bowser's castle. It's a pretty unique setup for a Mario spin-off, it reminds me of the stuff Kirby usually does. Your goal in each stage is quite simple. Hit the enemies and obstacles without losing your Mario ball. You of course control the flippers that keep Mario in the game and go from stage to stage to eventually reach Bowser. The most noteworthy thing about this game, I would argue, are the boss battles, which include a Petey Piranha that is borderline unrecognizable, the original character, King Tut, a Big Boo, and a boss that may be called Porcupuffer, but looks nothing like the enemy known as Porcupuffer. This game is also the only non-Paper Mario game that features Koopa Trolls, armored Koopa soldiers that are Paper Mario staples, but were only ever seen here outside of the Paper Mario series. And before we wrap up, I want to talk about a bunch of games that technically belong to different series, but are part of the larger Mario franchise regardless. Yoshi Touch Go was among the first Mario Universe games to release on Nintendo DS, and is among Nintendo's most forgotten games of all time, especially when you consider the fact this game is developed in-house by Nintendo EAD. It originally started as a tech demo for the DS and its new touchscreen capabilities, but eventually grew into a full game. Well, a physical, fully priced game. Content-wise, there is almost nothing here. No story, not even separate stages. This is really just the kind of game you would find on a whole bunch of mobile devices in the future, except now for full price on a DS. And whereas those games at least manage to hook you in with their repetitive gameplay, kinda like a roguelike, it is absolutely not what Yoshi Touch Go does. How on earth IGN gave this an 8.8, I will never know. I guess that in a world before smartphone games, this style of gameplay didn't feel so incredibly bare bones and borderline offensive. And last but not least, as Yoshi Touch Go is definitely worse, we have Donkey Kong Country. Obviously not the SNES original of course, and also not Donkey Kong Land on Game Boy, or the advanced port for Game Boy Advance. DK Land is still fairly well known for being a technical marvel. Getting this game to run on the original Game Boy is no small feat, and the GBA version at least has unique new gameplay elements. No, I'm talking about the Donkey Kong Country remake for Game Boy Color. This game came out 5 years after DK Land and 3 years before the GBA port, meaning it probably had one of the shortest lifespans of any Mario game of all time. And since both DK Land and the GBA game try to do some things different from the SNES original, whereas the Game Boy Color version does not, it falls into a black hole of nothingness where it's incredibly easy to forget this version even exists. There are not many ports or remakes in the Mario series that have not one, but 2 superior versions available, one of which was already out when it released, while the other came only 3 years later. I don't know what warranted this release, and I suspect that at one point it may have been intended to be an updated release of Donkey Kong Land, similar to how, say, Link's Awakening received a DX version for Game Boy Color, but had its name changed to signify this game is actually capable of representing Donkey Kong Country, while DK Land was so stripped down you could argue it wasn't. So then you may be a version of one of the best games of all time, but you're still incredibly forgettable. Did you know about these Mario games? And are there any you often forget exist? Share it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like and subscribe to the channel to stay updated on all my future Mario content coming up. For now, thanks for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.